Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Black Christmas. And this movie came out in 1974 and is directed by Bob Clark. And I've never seen this movie before. I've heard about it, but it was never on my watch list, really, because it just didn't sound interesting. And I just happened to come across it, and I was like, I'll give it a chance. It could be something that would be interesting. And apparently, this movie has had a cult following, and people who like horror movies seem to enjoy it. It's like a cult classic. And when you go into cult classics, you never really know what you're going to get. So I was kind of excited for that reason, just going in completely blind. And sadly, I didn't get much out of it. I understand that this is like one of the first in its genre. And what I mean by that, I mean slasher genre, which is a subgenre of horror movies. As one of the earlier ones, I just didn't get much out of it. And I know a lot of people would say Psycho was like the first one, which came out in 1960. And that movie I really love. Like, I would totally rewatch Psycho any day of the week. Whereas this movie just didn't have anything to offer. Like, as a standalone film, there were a couple things that I liked about it, but at the same time, there are loads that I didn't like. And I can see how this movie inspired horror movies that came out after this movie, like Halloween or like Friday the 13th, or movies like that. And the inspiration is very clear to me. And I liked one character in the film. Her name was Mrs. Mack. That's it, Mrs. Mack. She was the best character in the movie for me, even though she's only in it for the first 40 minutes. And I liked the joke of her hiding alcohol everywhere, like one in the Bible, another in a toilet, and that was kind of funny. I also kind of liked that the heroes of the film was only a cast of women, and for those who don't know, the horror movie trope is like there's always the one female lead who survives, and it's usually like a mixture between men and women, and it's always the one female who survives and everyone else dies. But in this movie, it's just women who are being picked off, and it kind of avoids the trope a bit, if that makes sense to anyone. There was also a shadow shot, which I kind of liked, but aside from that, I didn't really like anything else in the movie. And one thing that I want to point out before I officially start getting into my negatives is the poster. It's the first kill of the movie, and I was curious as to see how that would come into play into the film. And you do see it, but what makes it kind of weird is that no one ever acknowledges it or knows what happens to that character. Like, no one seems to care all that much, and no one discovers that body a single time, and it's just hanging around, and no one seems to find it, and it's in a house, and I'm just thinking to myself, I wonder how long it's going to take for them to find it, because eventually it's going to stink up the house, right? And that was dumb for me, and I just couldn't get that out of my head. And there are some kills in this movie that literally don't make any sense at all as to how it was done. And for a horror, I guess, slasher film, whatever you want to call it, there's very little horror in the film. It's mostly just characters talking about nothing, and this movie is very, very slow. There are so many points in this film where they just take long breaks in between conversations, like a character is talking about one thing, and then like 5 seconds of silence will go by, and then a character will say something, and it's just feels padded out, and it doesn't feel like characters are talking. It's just, I can't get into the story because it's so distracting to me. Aside from Mrs. Mack, I don't like any of the characters in this movie. There's like nothing to them for me to like, and I just found it to be incredibly dull because of that, if the slow pacing wasn't bad enough. And there are parts of this movie that literally don't need to be in the movie at all. Like, this movie easily could have been a short film, and it feels like a short film, but stretched out. And there were just stupid things thrown into the film just to have it be feature length. Like, one of the girls being pregnant. That's like a big subplot in this movie, and she wants to get rid of it, and she doesn't want to get married. And that was kind of dumb because it doesn't go anywhere. And to tell you the truth, there isn't really much of a plot to this movie. I was consistently thinking to myself, where's this going to be building to? Because in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that movie, there isn't too much of a story for a while until you later discover what it's actually about. And then you're like, oh, that's kind of disturbing. In Halloween, there's a story going throughout to the film where Dr. Loomis has to find Michael Myers before he does too much damage, and there's a hook for you throughout that film. And in this movie, characters are being picked off one by one, and it's not really acknowledged all that much. It's just like, okay, that happened, or that character just disappeared, and no one really knows what's going on. And now that I think about it, the characters that were picked off, I don't think anyone even bothers to look for them, really. And even the characters that they do look for, no one ever finds them. And it's not like the movie keeps that a mystery as to where the bodies are or who's doing that. They constantly show you the bodies and where the killer is, and it's just not scary because you see too much. And one of my biggest issues with this movie is that every single shot in this movie, for the most part, is just way too close. I never get a sense of the location. We have a few establishing shots sprinkled in the movie, but if we didn't have those establishing shots in the movie, I would assume that the entire film takes place in the same building. I'm not even kidding you. That's how close they are to characters' faces, and I want to see the room. I can't see the room. Let me see it. But they don't do that. And I don't really have much else to say about it. It was very, very boring, very unsatisfying, had nothing to offer me. If I want to watch a slasher movie, I'll just watch any other slasher movie, really, and I just got nothing out of this movie. So skip it if you ever come across it, and with all that being said, I'm going to give Black Christmas a 3 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Black Christmas, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching, and have a great day.